Media and Information Literacy. Magandang morning, mga estudyante, ng ESTI, PCIC, at ESE. We will now proceed with our lesson for today. For today's lesson we are going to tackle the hashtag Get Real. Media means, people are media, says Famous, says Tooth, media literacy, information literacy, and technology literacy. At the end of the lesson you should be able to 1. Define key concepts such as media, medium, and technology. 2. Differentiate the various views on media. 3. Describes the responsible uses and competent producers of media and information. 4. Explain meanings of media means. 5. Explain the importance of people on media. 6. Identifies the similarities and differences of media literacy, information literacy, and technology literacy. And 7. Editorializes the value of being a media and information literate individual. Great astronomical discoveries by Sir John Herschel, LLDFRS and DAMB. See at the Cape of Good Hope, the New York Sun recently published an article on the great telescope invented by astronomer Sir John Herschel, the complete details which can be found in the Edinburgh Journal of Science. Dr. Andrew Grant, the amanuensis of Sir Herschel, said that the telescope, currently housed in the Observatory of South Africa, was able to magnify the dark side of the moon and ascertain that there is life beyond Earth. The immense telescope of an entirely new principle was able to record images of fruit trees, bodies of water, bison, goats, tailless beavers, and what could possibly be horned horses, known in mythology as unicorn. The most fascinating discovery made through the telescope is the bat-like winged humanoid called the Vespertilio Homo, Latin, man-bat. These beings were of infinitely greater personal beauty, like angels. The Herschel team reported that these lunarians were both erect and dignified, and live without apparent strife. The picture shows the Great Moon Hoax from the New York Sun, 1835.
The 19th century was an age of exploration and discovery. It seemed as though every day some new concept or theory came to light that revolutionized the way that people saw the world and even the universe. It's no wonder then that when numerous articles proclaiming that life had been found on the moon appeared in the New York Sun in the summer of 1835, people believed them. The articles contained a slew of fantastic claims outlining what life on the moon was like and how the discoveries were made in the first place. It would go on to become one of the most famous hoaxes of all time. It all started on August 21st when a small teaser appeared in the New York Sun. It read, "We have just learned from an eminent publisher in the city of Edinburgh that Sir John Herschel of the Cape of Good Hope has made some astronomical discoveries of the most wonderful description, by means of an immense telescope of an entirely new principle." This was just a setup to get people excited about what was to come. The articles themselves were split up into 6 parts and claimed to be extracts reprinted from the Edinburgh Journal of Science. The first article talked mostly about the technology that was used for the discoveries, proclaiming that Herschel had built a giant telescope that was 24 feet in diameter and contained a special second lens referred to as a hydro-oxygen microscope, which allowed for a level of magnification and detail like nothing ever seen before. The author was a Dr. Andrew Grant, who was said to be a colleague of Herschel who was keeping track of the discoveries. While the first article was mostly about the telescope, it's with the consecutive articles that the amazing fantasy worlds of the moon would be revealed. The articles claimed that when Herschel pointed the telescope at the moon, he saw a beautiful, colorful world made of green basaltic rock, covered with flowers, forests, and bodies of water. There were herds of miniature buffalo, there were horned bears, white deer with black antlers, animals that resembled giraffes, strange exotic birds, and even bipedal beavers, who lived in huts and carried their young much like human mothers. The most fantastic claim was that the moon was inhabited by intelligent human-like beings. They were covered in fur, had wings like bats, and faces like orangutans. They lived in a place named the Ruby Coliseum and were highly advanced. They were given the scientific name Vespertilio Homo. The Batmen existed in a utopian society that was free of violence. They were said to be extremely polite and vegetarian. They also built large monuments, such as a temple made of sapphire. The articles generated a lot of excitement. They were reprinted in many newspapers, although they were also condemned as a hoax by other publications. Many people believed the claims, and some were more skeptical, especially about the more fantastic claims. So who was behind the hoax? Although Sir John Herschel was a real scientist who really did study the moon and really was building a telescope, he had no idea about the articles until later and eventually would grow annoyed at having his name associated with something so outrageous. The purported author of the articles, Dr. Andrew Grant, was completely made up. The author of the hoax was most likely a reporter named Richard Adams Locke. He confessed to writing the articles, although he never really explained why he did it. But it's thought that he did it in part to satirize the more fantastic claims and astronomical theories that had been floating around at the time. Interestingly enough, this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. In fact, only a few months earlier, famed author Edgar Allan Poe had published a similar story about a guy who used a hot air balloon to take a trip to the moon. He also claimed that his story was real even though he knew it wasn't, and it's worth noting that Locke was Poe's editor for the story, so it's likely that that's how he got the idea in the first place. Whatever the case, the Great Moon Hoax is remembered today as one of the first mass media events. I highly suggest you guys go out and read the text from the articles because I really only scratched the surface here. They're very long and go into great detail about the lunar discoveries. It's worth a read. If you like this video, please subscribe to Cryptic for more.
Japanese radio WVTR post-earthquake broadcast. After the recent 7.5 magnitude earthquake and very deep tremors were felt offshore in Tokyo yesterday at 8:46 a.m., the English-language Armed Forces radio station, WVTR, interrupted its regular music programming for an emergency bulletin. According to Corporal James Carnahan of Chicago, who is currently assigned in Tokyo, the tremors caused the sea to pull back the water in great heave. There emerged, from the depths, a monstrous sea creature that resembled a dragon. Japanese and American troops aided one another in fending off the creature with high-powered weapons, flamethrowers, grenade, phosphorus bombs, and tanks, but the creature continued inland toward Tokyo City proper, destroying buildings and vehicles along the way. In the live radio broadcast, the pandemonium could be heard, but the lines were suddenly cut, and no new information was broadcasted again. This is the published newspaper of Binghamton Press after the radio announcement. #GetReal, what is for real? What do we know about the world? And how do we get to know what we know about the world? So much of what we know about the world is in fact mediated. We get information about the world through media and information technologies. Consider the pieces of news above. Both are not exactly how they first appeared. They were embellished and condensed for this book. But the gist of both was actually made public. The first one, regarding Vespertilio Homo, first appeared on a Monday, August 31, 1835, in the New York Sun. The second one, about the sea creature that attacked Tokyo, was broadcasted on a Thursday, May 29, 1947, through the radio channel, WVTR. But in 1835, in what may be considered as one of the most famous hoaxes in history, when news of the man-bats appeared on the newspaper, couched in scientific language and associated with the name of an actual astronomer, many people believed in these particular extraterrestrial creatures as facts. Many cultures have in their lore the figure of the dragon, and while we do not know for sure if anyone has actually ever seen one, it is not hard to imagine why even a fictional dragon is terrifying. But in 1947, a few years after World War II, when emergency news interrupted a radio program, people went into wild panic, believing as fact that monstrous creature they had long held in their imagination was now in the real world, as real as an earthquake. It turned out that the hour-long broadcast, complete with on-site news coverage, was only an elaborate joke in celebration of the radio station's anniversary. At that time, people did not get the punchline, and 5 American officers, who were part of running the station, were relieved of their duties.
The internet has become the lifeblood of culture and communication. But it's also a minefield of phishing emails, fake ads, fake news, and people trying to scam you. How to survive? We've got a guide to help you navigate through it.
A study by MindEdge, a technology consultancy, showed that less than 20% of people could pass a digital literacy test.
In general, digital literacy means a reasonable understanding, reasonable handle on what's going on in the digital world.
Want to level up your web savvy? Ken Colburn, CEO of the Data Doctors, showed us 3 things to be on the watch for. For starters, there's an email scam called spear phishing, where cyber criminals send you fake emails.
The most common thing they're trying to do is capture your credentials, your username and passwords.
From there, they can lock you out and raid your accounts. Ken says most scams like this are generated from a foreign country.
That being the case, it's very easy for them to trip up on grammar, on punctuation, and on spelling. But if you read in here, it says, "We are having congestions." That's a very typical foreign translation that didn't quite make it.
Next, watch out for fake images online.
Modified images that claim that a person is doing something that supports a fake story.
The goal is to purposely spread misinformation, promote certain agendas, or just as a hoax, like this pilot selfie.
Again, people see the image and then they just assume it's real.
So if a picture seems too incredible to be credible, run it through Google image search.
And you can see all these different websites that are basically debunking this image as being a fake.
Finally, be wary of promoted content which are actually paid advertisements made to look like news articles.
Legitimate websites will specifically say sponsored content. That means somebody paid somebody else to put it in front of you.
Less trustworthy sites won't tell you this, so a good site to check if an article is legit is News360. It aggregates news from all of the media outlets that covered a story.
It's the ones where you only see 1 or 2 organizations that are reporting on a story where you start to get suspicious.
Ultimately, it's on you to be the first line of defense.
Do your research before you click on links, before you act on any piece of information.
Go from F's to A's with tips to improve your digital literacy.
How do you know what's happening in your world? The amount of information just a click away may be limitless, but the time and energy we have to absorb and evaluate it is not. All the information in the world won't be very useful unless you know how to read the news. To your grandparents, parents, or even older siblings, this idea would have sounded strange. Only a few decades ago, news was broad-based. Your choices were limited to a couple of general interest magazines and newspapers of record, and 3 or 4 TV networks, where trusted newscasters delivered the day's news at the same reliable time every evening. But the problems with this system soon became apparent as mass media spread. While it was known that authoritarian countries controlled and censored information, a series of scandals showed that democratic governments were also misleading the public, often with media cooperation. Revelations of covert wars, secret assassinations, and political corruption undermined public faith in official narratives presented by mainstream sources. This breakdown of trust in media gatekeepers led to alternative newspapers, radio shows, and cable news competing with the major outlets and covering events from various perspectives. More recently, the internet has multiplied the amount of information and viewpoints, with social media, blogs, and online video turning every citizen into a potential reporter. But if everyone is a reporter, nobody is, and different sources may disagree not only on opinions, but on the facts themselves. So how do you get the truth, or something close? One of the best ways is to get the original news unfiltered by middlemen. Instead of articles interpreting a scientific study or a politician's speech, you can often find the actual material and judge for yourself. For current events, follow reporters on social media. During major events such as the Arab Spring or the Ukrainian protests, newscasters and bloggers have posted updates and recordings from the midst of the chaos. Though many of these later appear in articles or broadcasts, keep in mind that these polished versions often combine the voice of the person who was there with the input of editors who weren't. At the same time, the more chaotic the story, the less you should try to follow it in real time. In events like terrorist attacks and natural disasters, today's media attempts continuous coverage even when no reliable new information is available, sometimes leading to incorrect information or false accusations of innocent people. It's easy to be anxious in such events, but try checking for the latest information at several points in the day rather than every few minutes, allowing time for complete details to emerge and false reports to be refuted. While good journalism aims for objectivity, media bias is often unavoidable. When you can't get the direct story, read coverage in multiple outlets, which employ different reporters and interview different experts. Tuning into various sources and noting the differences lets you put the pieces together for a more complete picture. It's also crucial to separate fact from opinion. Words like think, likely, or probably mean that the outlet is being careful, or worse, taking a guess. And watch out for reports that rely on anonymous sources. These could be people who have little connection to the story, or have an interest in influencing coverage, their anonymity making them unaccountable for the information they provide. Finally, and most importantly, try to verify news before spreading it. While social media has enabled the truth to reach us faster, it's also allowed rumors to spread before they can be verified, and falsehoods to survive long after they've been refuted. So before you share that unbelievable or outrageous news item, do a web search to find any additional information or context you might have missed, and what others are saying about it. Today, we are more free than ever from the old media gatekeepers who used to control the flow of information. But with freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to curate our own experience and ensure that this flow does not become a flood, leaving us less informed than before we took the plunge.
Media means, let us hold off talking about the content of media. Let us, for now, talk about media itself. The word media comes from the Latin medius, which means middle. Media is the plural form of medium, though in actual usage it is acceptably understood as a singular subject as well. Thus, we could say, media are responsible for the information that they disseminate. And we could also say, media is trying to influence us all the time. In the use of the term as a collective noun, media has been associated with mass communication, or forms of communication that are able to disseminate information widely and simultaneously to masses of people. The term mass media achieved currency in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with reference to the proliferation of inexpensive newspapers and magazines. As such, we now tend to think of television, radio, newspaper, and the like. We hear the word media, even if the term is not limited to mass communication and mass media. The many layered meanings of the word media can help us appreciate how media meditates the world. One way we can imagine media is by thinking of it as being in the middle, intervening. It is like a window, situated in between you and the world you are looking at. As a metaphor, window captures the shape and function of the screen. So you could say you are looking at the screen of a television or your laptop, but you could also very well say you are looking at the world through the screen. The latter suggests that you are not seeing the whole world as fact but only a part of the world as a perspective from your side of the window. There is the in-betweenness of the metaphor of the window, and there is the intimate in-betweenness of lenses, such as eyeglasses or contact lenses. Sometimes media comes in the middle of you and your view of the world practically without your seeing the frame. If you are not paying enough attention to the framing of media, you might think that you are seeing the world itself and not a mediation of the world, in the way that you forget that you are wearing eyeglasses when you have been wearing them for a long time. The lenses that come between you and your view of the world colors your vision. When we forget that there is mediation, an in-betweenness, we begin to take the medium for the world itself. We start to think that the world that we see through media is our natural medium, that is, our environment or surroundings. If we watch television news all day long, it is not unthinkable that we go out to the world thinking that the world is exactly like the one we have been watching in the news. Someone who does not watch television news at all likely go out to the world with a different view of what is out there. George Gerbner, for example, employing cultivation analysis in his research, found out that people with prolonged exposure to television tend to view the world as dangerous and tend to mistrust other people. Gerbner called this outlook the mean world syndrome. Media also means means. That is, it is a method, instrument, and agency, at the same time that it is a container that holds together something. In this sense, the medium of a painter could be oil or water, but her canvas is also her medium, and her hands wielding her style are also her medium. The painter is enabled by her media, and at the end of her work process, her media contains her expression on her livelihood or her passion. Because media is so powerful, many people want to use it. Some want to use it to affirm life, while others to negate it. Media, as such, is not only the passive framing of the window or the mere coloring of the lenses, but something active and alive. It is a means to make things possible or impossible. You have power if you wield the camera. Think about how much power the businessman has who owns a media company with a battalion of cameramen. Because media is so powerful, many people want to use it. Some want to use it to affirm the world, while others to negate it.
So what is media anyway?
Media?
Media refer to various channels of communication between a person or persons and their intended audience. Television, radio, newspapers, and the internet are different types of media. One of the oldest forms of media is print. Thanks to ever-changing technology, our exposure to media is almost non-stop. Media shapes our perception of what is real. It surrounds us in the forms of billboards, signage, and even the clothes you wear. We have radios, televisions, computers, and smartphones. We have the internet, online video channels, and all sorts of social media. So stop and look around. Media is everywhere, and it's not going away anytime soon. Learn about it, understand it, and hey, be media smart.
The cultivation theory states that those who watch large amounts of television will be more susceptible to media compared to those who watch small amounts of television. The theory argues that media generally presents an image of the world that does not reflect reality. Television images are an exaggeration or fantasy of what actually exists. There is a disproportionate number of handsome gentlemen, beautiful women, crime, wealth, and violence. As a result, people end up perceiving the real world in a distorted manner and viewing actuality through a television perspective. The violence portrayed on television is often glamorized to such a degree that audience perceives it to be fact in everyday life. Though analysts shows that over half of television characters are involved in violent activity of some kind each week. Studies show that less than 1% of Americans are actually victims to violent crimes. However, heavy television watchers are generally more suspicious of the world around them. This brings us to Gerbner's mean world syndrome. In a nutshell, heavy viewing of television and the associated violence leads the viewer to believe that the world is a much more dangerous place than it actually is. With a serial killer, rapist, or pedophile lurking around every corner. Because television occupies a central role in our culture, it is one of the most influential forms of media. Some may say television does not reflect reality, but rather builds an alternate reality. This theory does not stop at television, but is extended through other types of media like music and video games. For example, playing slow and emotional music can affect the way that you feel, just like playing a first-person shooter could make you more aggressive. Not everyone is cultivated by TV, and those who watch very little TV are not affected at all. So next time you go to watch television, remember the impact that it has on your personality and the way that you perceive the people around you.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Top Think. Today we're going to learn about the sleeper effect. Now, Let's begin. Number 1. The media tidal wave. Think back to the last commercial you watched. It might have even been a few seconds ago when you clicked on this video. Can you remember what that commercial was about? Was it showing off the latest car, a preview for an upcoming movie, or an ad for some cutting-edge medication? You encounter an overwhelming amount of these advertisements on a daily basis. On average, you waste a full hour of every day watching ads. Now, of course, you don't remember most of them. You remember the show you were watching or the game you were playing. But the ads? They're just a blur in your memory. You tune them out like background noise, like the cars honking outside your window or the dogs barking down the street. You don't remember them. You barely pay attention to them. Yet every advertisement has a powerful effect on you. Whether you like it or not, the media influences your opinions. It changes your preferences. It even controls your lifestyle. Now, it may not always be obvious or direct, but it's still happening. You just take those car commercials you see every day. Come on, how many of them really convince you to buy a new car? Probably none. Just like none of those pharmaceutical ads suddenly inspire you to go see your doctor. But each advertisement you ingest slowly but surely alters your perspective. You can't see it happening and you'll hardly ever notice the difference, but your mind is being made up for you. Number 2. The tricks of the trade. So, how do they do it? How does the media manipulate your life? People think advertising is simple and straightforward, but it's a lot more complicated than you think. Commercials don't just show you a product and expect you to buy it. Well, some do, but those ads aren't the most effective in the long term. They're great for a temporary burst of business, but over time, the hype around any new product will just die down, and people will quickly go back to their old routine. Okay, this makes a lot more sense in context, so let's look at an example. Imagine a soda company makes a new line of low-calorie drinks. They want to get the word out there, so they make a commercial that shows off how great their new soda tastes. You see the commercial on TV, and in the moment you think to yourself, that soda looks pretty good. But a couple of days go by, and you forget all about that commercial. So when you finally go to the store, you end up buying the same soda that you always buy. So to make sure this doesn't happen, the best commercials have to be a lot sneakier. They use advanced persuasion techniques to help their message stick. Some ads will sell you on a lifestyle instead of a product. They show you this fantasy life filled with family, fun, and luxury. And that association subtlety changes your opinion of their product. If you want proof, just think about how many car companies spend 90% of their commercial talking about anything but the actual car. But other ads lodge themselves in your memory by doing something really strange. They make themselves less persuasive in a way that persuades more people. Number 3. The power of the sleeper effect. The sleeper effect is one of the best-kept secrets of the advertising industry. It's actually been around since the 1940s when it was first discovered by Carl Hovland and his colleagues. At the time, Hovland was researching how the media affected people's opinions of World War II. His data revealed that certain ads were ineffective at first, but had a significant impact over time. In other words, your opinion might be exactly the same after your first viewing, and even your second, and your third. But as more time goes by, that message will have a larger and larger effect on you. It worms its way into your brain, changing the way you think, behave, and live your life. But how does it work? In his next batch of experiments, Carl Hovland found that the sleeper effect needs 2 things to function. The first one's easy: repetition. These ads get played all the time. You may not remember them, but you've been watching these sleeper ads every day for weeks or months at a time. Just think about the jingles that you can't stop humming, the catchphrases and phone numbers that keep popping into your head. You don't know where they came from, but they're always there. For the second step, we need something to soften the blow, to suppress the initial impact of our ad. Scientists call this device the discounting cue. Whether you realize it or not, you've seen this device in action hundreds of times. You know how at the end of most political ads they tell you that it was paid for by their opponent? Doesn't that make the ad less believable? At first, you might have bought into their cause, but when you see that, you pull back a little, right? That obvious lack of credibility means most people won't change their minds. You won't really internalize their message. So why would these political ads include something that obviously hurts their cause? That message acts as a discounting cue. It undermines the effectiveness of the ad because they're not trying to persuade you now. They don't care if you leave the commercial feeling motivated. In fact, they don't want you to because those impulsive reactions fade quickly over time. That's why they add a discounting cue to neutralize their own commercial. But what stops that discounting cue from ruining their whole ad? It turns out discounting cues are easy to forget. When you watch the same commercial over and over, the message will stick, but the lack of credibility won't. You'll gradually internalize one and forget about the other. Psychologists call this process dissociation. In your mind, you naturally separate the message from its discounting cue, and without that cue, the message becomes much more persuasive. There's nothing stopping their ad from completely changing your opinion, so even if you know a commercial isn't credible, it can still have a major effect on you. Number 4. Media manipulation in action. One of the most famous examples of the sleeper effect comes from a group of psychologists in the 1970s. This study was actually the first to definitely replicate Hovland's groundbreaking discovery, which happened over 25 years earlier. Until 1978, researchers couldn't figure out how to replicate his findings. But this study showed the power of the sleeper effect and how big of a difference the right cue can make. The study itself was pretty simple. A sample of college students had to read a controversial news article. The article was created to influence their opinion, like any normal advertisement. But at the end of every article, there was a note. The note explained to the reader that the article was filled with inaccurate data. After reading something like that, what would you think? Would you still put any faith in that news article? You probably would, just not on purpose. And that's exactly what happened to this sample of college students. They knew perfectly well that the article wasn't credible, yet their opinions still changed. The end note scared them off at first, but over time, they gravitated toward the article's controversial message. The discovery of this bizarre social phenomenon changed the way that the media approached advertising, because now they don't have to rely on conscious persuasion. Normally, when you see something convincing, you can feel yourself changing your mind. You know you just watched a powerful advertisement or heard a charismatic speaker. But the sleeper effect unlocks a deeper level of control. Now, the media can unconsciously stimulate long-term change. They can manipulate your opinion without you realizing what's happening. Number 5. Repurposing the sleeper effect. It's been decades since Hovland first discovered the sleeper effect. Since then, the influence of the media has grown exponentially. In the 21st century, experts have used Hovland's theory to develop new ways to delay and strengthen their messages. Delayed fear is a great example and has become more popular in recent years. If an advertisement wants to present something as dangerous or scary, what kind of commercial should they make? You'd think they'd want something terrifying, something that really sticks with their audience. But those ads rarely have a lasting effect on their viewers. Instead, the media undermines its own message with humor, bad quality, or some other discounting cues. This kind of commercial won't leave anyone shaking in their boots, but it helps their message stick in people's heads. So the next time you go to the store to buy some chips or a soda, think about why you're choosing that specific product. Do you just like the taste? Did you see an ad that sold you a feeling or a lifestyle? Or has the media unconsciously changed your opinion? Has your constant exposure to certain brands, companies, and influencers transformed the way you think? It's tempting to say no, No one likes to think their views may not be their own, but that's the power of the sleeper effect. You'll keep thinking they're your choices, your opinions, and your habits, but the media has been worming its way into your mind for your whole life, and it isn't going to stop anytime soon. Hey, thank you for watching Top Think.
People are media, media is technological. But at least in this chapter, we have to appreciate the meaning of technology beyond the term's automatic associations. Perhaps we think of machines or microchips when we hear the word technology. The Greek technologia, from which technology is derived, means the systematic, logia, application of art or knowledge, techne. The term refers not only to the engineered cell phone that you use to reach someone from a distance but also to the body and voice of a storyteller, speaking to others about distant places. People, in this sense, are media. You are a medium. When people continue to pass on or perpetuate certain knowledge or arts, which they have received from others and acquired by learning, they become part of a technology, they become technological. People mediate the world, is another way of picturing it, following our discussion on the meaning of media. People mediate the world not in a vacuum or not in any transcendental way. They mediate or embody culture. That is, they mediate a body of knowledge in particular places and in particular moments through particular means. It is like a mother who sings to her child a lullaby, and then the child, when he grows up, sings the same lullaby to his daughter, and so on. It is like the unforgettable recipe of slow-cooked stew that a grandmother cooks on special occasions, a recipe which a grand-aunt turns into a restaurant business venture. says Famous, says Thoth. Plato, speaking through Socrates in Phaedrus, recounts a conversation between King Thamus of Egypt and the inventor god, Thoth. In this story, Thoth, like a sweet-talking salesman, presents to Thamus a new line of his inventions and convinces the king that these inventions must be made widely available in the kingdom. One of the Thoth's many accomplishments, which will improve both the wisdom and the memory of the Egyptians. Thamus's reply is astonishing, and it should give us enough food for thought when it comes to considering the interrelated terms of people, media, and technology. Thamus chid Thoth, saying that the inventor himself cannot determine the value and effect of his own invention. In this case, writing, according to Thamus, will not aid memory but will cause people to be forgetful. He predicts that people will rely on writing to bring things to their remembrance by external signs instead of by their own internal resources. Thamus also tells Thoth that writing will not give people wisdom but only a quantity of information. And, as an unfortunate consequence, Thamus claims that people will be filled with a conceit of wisdom instead of real wisdom, and, hence, will be a burden to society.
Wow, Sam grade 12 students. This time we will going to discuss the introduction of media and information literacy. Media and information literacy plays an important role in communication and information dissemination. Media and information literacy will enable us to access, understand, and create communications in a variety of contexts in the form of accessing, understanding, and creating media and information. Accessing it means to use, navigate, manage, store and retrieve content in print, radio and online. In understanding, it means viewers' ability to read, deconstruct and evaluate media contexts and motivations. It is a critique view on quality of material being broadcast and shared. Producing. Viewers or netizens' ability to produce, distribute and publish ideas and information via mainstream media or social media. It can be able to use media responsibly and to contribute democratic process. Using electronic media. It can be able also to transact and post online. Media literacy and information literacy have always been linked. Media and information literacy play several roles. Please take note the following roles. Number 1. They act as channels of information and knowledge through which citizens communicate with each other and make informed decisions. Number 2. They facilitate informed debates between diverse social actors. Number 3. They provide us with much of what we learn about the world beyond our immediate experience. Number 4. They are means by which society learns about itself and build a sense of community. Number 5. They function as a watchdog of government in all its forms, promoting transparency. Number 6. They public life and public scrutiny of those with power through exposing corruption. Number 7. They maladministration and corporate wrongdoing. Number 8. They are essential facilitators of democratic processes and one of the guarantors of free and fair elections. And last, number 9. They are vehicle for cultural cohesion within and between nations, function as an advocate and social actor in its own right while respecting pluralistic values.
Media literacy, as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate and create messages across a variety of contexts. This four-component model has the advantage of applying equally well to print, broadcasting and the Internet. This is familiar territory for print and broadcasting, subject of many policy initiatives and educational curricula. Access. Access rests on a dynamic and social process, not a one-off active provision. Once initial access is established, developing literacy leads users to alter significantly and continually the conditions of access, updating, upgrading and extending hardware and software applications. Problematically, given socio-demographic inequalities in material, social and symbolic resources, inequalities in access to online knowledge, communication and participation will continue. Analysis. People's engagement with both print and audiovisual media has been shown to rely on a range of analytic competencies. In the audiovisual domain, these include an understanding of the agency, categories, technologies, languages, representations and audiences from media. At present, not only is a parallel account of Internet-related analytic skills highly underdeveloped, but the public has yet to develop such skills and so to make the most of online opportunities. Evaluation. There is little point in access or analysis without judgment, but a stress on evaluation raises, rightly, some difficult policy questions when specifying and legitimating appropriate bases of critical literacy, aesthetic, political, ideological and/or economic. The scope and purpose of evaluation is also disputed. Is media literacy intended to promote a democratized, diverse, anti-elitist approach to online representations, or should it underpin a more traditional, hierarchical discrimination of good from bad, authoritative from unauthorized, information and communication? Content creation. Although not all definitions of media literacy include the requirement to create, to produce symbolic texts, it is argued first, that people attain a deeper understanding of the conventions and merits of professionally produced material if they have direct experience of content production, and second, that the Internet par excellence is a medium which offers hitherto unimagined opportunities for ordinary people to create online content. To exclude this from a definition of media literacy would be to greatly underutilize the potential of the Internet for the public.
Enjoy this movie, then visit brainpop.com for much more. Whoa. Ah! Moby! Have you been going online without your special glasses? Dear Tim and Moby, I know I can't believe everything I see and read, but how do I know what to trust? From Melody. Yeah, there's a ton of information we need to sort through these days. Most kids spend more than half their waking hours consuming media. That's any form of communication that reaches many people at once. Websites and magazines, games and TV shows, it's all part of the media. It also includes any advertisement you see or hear. All this stuff is a constant part of our environment today. Yes, it is wonderful. But you have to remember that these messages don't come out of nowhere. They're each made by someone, and that means they always have a purpose. These goals are often hidden, and they may not be in your best interest. So it's a good idea to be skeptical or doubtful. That doesn't mean that news and social networks aren't fun or useful, but you have to understand their goals to judge their credibility. That's how trustworthy you think a message is. A rave review of a blockbuster sequel? Not so fast. The people that own the magazine also run the studio that made the movie. They own the fast food places serving those Hungry Maze meal deals. And they even have a gaming company to make Hungry Maze apps. Yeah, connecting those doubts makes you realize all media has a particular point of view. They speak with a bias, a slant on how they see the world. Even serious news outlets have biases. Editors choose which stories to run and how they're reported. Even if they're trying their best to avoid bias, personal views will always influence these stories. No one can be completely impartial, not even us. But you don't need special glasses to get to the truth. You just have to ask some questions. Like, what's the message of this piece of media? Who created it? What biases might they hold? And what effect do they hope their message will have? Finding the answers can help decode the media all around us. Ads are often the easiest to read. You already know the intended effect, that you buy something. But advertisers use all kinds of subtle tricks to get you to do that. They might obscure who's behind the product, or hide the fact that it's an ad at all. For instance, product placement puts popular brands inside movies and shows. And traditional ads have dozens of ways to make the product seem more appealing. First, almost every image is altered or changed. Pimples are erased, waists are slimmed, and teeth are whitened. Backgrounds are changed to look more interesting. Media images can make it seem like we all look the same way. But people come in all colors, shapes, and sizes. Some ads use scientific claims or statistics. The claims may be true, but there's often more to the story. Other ads work by connecting products with celebrities or cute mascots. You know some genes can't make you rich and famous, but the connection works on a subconscious level. Next time you're shopping, you'll be more likely to buy that brand. If you question what you see, you can break these connections. It's not just advertising. All media use similar strategies to grab your attention. Like the stories in your news feed. They use sensationalism, shocking or exaggerated language, to convince you to click. Social media is flooded with sensationalist stories. And everything you read, write, and share is traced. It's called data tracking, and networks use it to send you similar posts. Following the same kinds of stories all the time can really distort your view of the world. So it's smart to get news from a variety of sources. You'll expose yourself to ideas and topics you might otherwise miss. I know it can feel overwhelming, but you can't hide from the media. You just have to learn to read the messages, like how we learn to read books. That's what media literacy is all about. Well, in your case, I guess you can just keep wearing these. Huh. Visit us at brainpop.com for more on this topic and hundreds of others. You'll find movies, games, quizzes, and activities. Learn more about the difference BrainPop can make.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Jay Smooth, and this is Crash Course Media Literacy. For the next few weeks, we're going to take a deep dive into media, how we consume it, how we create it, and how it impacts our everyday lives. Before we get started, do me a favor and think. How many hours did you spend consuming media today? Don't worry, I'll wait. What'd you come up with? 2 hours? 3? 5? If you're the average U.S. adult, today you spent upwards of 10 hours watching TV, listening to the radio, surfing the web, scrolling through your phone, or checking out awesome educational video series on YouTube. That's over 40% of your day. If you're a teen or tween, you spent a little less time, maybe 6 to 9 hours. Never before in history have humans spent so many waking hours consuming media. Since it's taking up more and more of our time each year, it's important that we understand its influence on everything we do. Now, when I say media, I'm talking about a couple different things. The literal definition of media is the plural of medium, or multiple mediums, so to speak. And a medium is a substance or method in which something is communicated. It's the vehicle for a message. Books, films, paintings, songs, TV shows, poems, video games, magazines, podcasts, music videos, newspapers, web forums, coupons, email newsletters, tweets, straight-to-DVD sequels, receipts, traffic signs, both good and bad street art, Snapchat stories, those word of the day calendars your aunt always buys you, protest signs, embarrassing but cute childhood photos you post on Throwback Thursday, breaking news push notifications that give you a mini heart attack, sex ed pamphlets about your changing body, and my Blu-ray copy of the second highest grossing film of all time, Titanic. Those are all media. When you think about it that way, it makes sense that we spend so much time consuming media. Whether you're at work or school or just hanging out, chances are you're almost always interacting with some sort of artifact of communication. As a culture, we often stick a "the" in front of media to refer collectively to mass communication. It's an umbrella term we use to talk about the widely distributed newspapers, TV channels, websites, radio stations, movie studios, and more that create or distribute information, like CNN, the New York Times, NPR, Disney, or YouTube. Whether you're talking about media as in multiple mediums or the media, and during this course we'll be talking about both, the ability to navigate the media is a powerful and crucial skill. Media scholars refer to this skill as media literacy. As a field of study, media literacy comprises and overlaps many different theories and subjects, from critical thinking and psychology to linguistics and ethics and technology. In this series, we'll be using the definition of media literacy that's used by the National Association of Media Literacy Educators. And it describes media literacy as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. Now, with this definition in mind, think back to the media you spent your time with today. What kind of content were you absorbing, and how did you get to it? Were you making sense of its messages? Were you aware that each message was created by someone with their own goals and opinions? When you create media, like a blog post or an Instagram, what is your responsibility to those who view it? Finally, what do you do with all that info you just received? With media literacy skills, you'll have the power to think through each of these important questions every time you pick up your phone or flip on the radio. It'll be like putting on a pair of glasses for the first time, so eye-opening you'll never want to take them off, which is great because you won't actually be able to take them off. It'll be hard to look at media the same way. So actually, I guess media literacy is more like laser eye surgery, but way cheaper. Okay, media literacy lesson number 1. Understanding the difference between media messages and media effects. Media messages are the values and ideas that are promoted by the media, the things that get put into them. Media effects are their influences and consequences on audiences. But talking about media in terms of these inputs and outputs is way too simple. Media doesn't just broadcast one easy-to-understand message straight into our brains. And readers and viewers don't just agree with whatever they say and move on with their lives. The creators' experiences and environment affect everything they create. Their messages are filled with tons of baggage, and we consumers have our own baggage too, which determines how we react to and interpret messages. Media scholars, cultural critics, and plenty of other very smart academic types have long understood that we need to think about messages and effects in a far more nuanced way. For instance, take British sociologist Stuart Hall's theory of encoding and decoding, popularized in 1973. Hall wrote that before a message is distributed, it is encoded by the creator during its production. The message the creator wants to send is written in a code of sorts using a host of pre-understood meanings, symbols, and definitions that they think or hope the recipient will understand. But the recipient, that's you, has their own mental dictionary full of meanings, symbols, and definitions. When someone interprets a message, they decode it by applying their knowledge and experience to decipher its meaning. When I say encode and decode, I don't just mean a secret code you use to talk to your friends or Morse code. As Hall would say, all language is coded. Let's go to the thought bubble to break this down. Say you're texting your significant other about where to go for dinner. You just heard about this fancy French restaurant that's supposed to be super romantic and perfect for a date. So you say, let's do Maison de l'Amour, kissy face emoji. You're doing a little encoding here. You use the restaurant's name instead of fancy French restaurant because it sounds more impressive and makes you look cool for knowing a little French. You throw in a kissy face emoji to turn up the flirtatiousness. But also, notice you say do instead of go to because since you're already talking about where to eat, the activity you're doing at Maison de l'Amour is implied. Done. Send. They respond, Okay, crying, laughing emoji. Wait, what does that mean? Did you say something wrong? Do they not want to go? Are they just so stoked for this restaurant that they're laughing maniacally? Do they want to break up? What does this mean? Here, you're trying to decode this mysterious message using what you know about the English language, emoji, and your significant other. Maybe some social anxiety is working its way in too. Either way, you're thinking that clearly your romantic gesture was poorly received. But perhaps all they meant by the crying, laughing emoji was they'd love to go despite your super cheesy taste in restaurants. They encoded their message too, but something got lost in the decoding. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Hall's theory of encoding and decoding is a rejection of what's known as textual determinism, or the idea that a message's meaning is inevitably sent and received in its entirety just as intended every time. Hall gave way more credit to the consumer than many theorists before him, who often thought of most communication as a one-way street. The significance of this theory is that as a media consumer, you're not just a helpless sponge absorbing all kinds of messages without a second thought. You interpret messages in a unique way, which means you also have the ability to see what messages are being thrown at you and decide whether you want to catch them, pass them on, or drop them completely. This also leaves plenty of room for miscommunication and messages getting lost in translation. Of course, scholars, educators, parents, and consumers have always debated to what degree media really affects its consumers. Questions of whether media can truly harm or benefit us has led to media literacy education in schools, media regulations like movie ratings and the labeling of advertisements, and tons of research into media effects. Plus, these days, when 2/3 of US adults get news from social media, and some of that can be fake news, we have to constantly ask, what information can I truly trust? The answers to questions like these aren't always obvious. Luckily, media literacy gives you the tools you need to find the answers. Whether you're feeling skeptical of social media's role in your political views, questioning the power of tech companies to control your news feeds, or just trying to get your message out into the world, learning how to navigate the media landscape is tough, but possible with the right skill set. Now, let's be honest with each other. If you're watching this video, you're probably already pretty media savvy, or at least very interested in being so. You clearly love learning and found us here on the interwebs, so you've got some great skills already. Critics might even say we're just preaching to the choir. Well, guess what? If you're in the choir, we want you singing. This is our official request that you sing to everyone you know about media literacy. Okay, maybe not literally sing, that might get annoying. But in all seriousness, media literacy education is only effective when we're all on the same page. And those who need the most help learning how to swim in the media deep end are also the least likely to seek out videos like this. So we need you to pass along these skills to friends, family, high school acquaintances you only talk to on Facebook, anyone who won't come across these lessons themselves. We're all in this together. As Academy Award-winning actress Kate Winslet says in the 1997 hit film Titanic, you jump, I jump, Jack. Here's how we're going to help. During the first half of this course, we're going to dive into the history of the field. Spoiler alert, media literacy is not a new problem. Learn how to find trusty sources of information, discover how media and your mind interact, and explore creating media and the responsibilities that come with it. In the second half of the course, we'll use this theory to look at how media works in the world. We'll discover how it's regulated, the policies and the economics of it all, the dark side of the media like propaganda and misinformation, the lure of advertising, how the big tech companies are changing the media landscape, plus we'll take a look at where the field is headed. Throughout the course, we'll return to the core principles of media literacy to build a framework with which to approach our everyday media-filled lives. I hope you'll join me on this journey. Until next time, I'm Jay Smooth for Crash Course. We'll see you next week. If you've ever driven a car, legally that is, you know before you taste that sweet, sweet vehicular freedom, you had to take a really fun test. No, not the practical one where you parallel park between two cones like your life depends on it. The learner's permit exam, the test of all tests. You probably studied for it with a real snooze-worthy booklet or some informational government website. You had to learn all the rules of the road before getting to touch the road. Well, in a car at least. Whenever you're learning a new skill, there's a certain amount of theoretical knowledge you need before you're ready to sit in the driver's seat. It's the same for media literacy. These days, we're so inundated with media, it's impossible to teach someone all the skills they need. It's like we skipped the driving exam and woke up behind the wheel of a moving race car. Luckily, it's never too late to dust off the old driver's manual. So far on Crash Course Media Literacy, we've covered everything from how literacy was born to how our brains handle messages. We've talked about theories and principles, but now it's time to really get behind the wheel. In our first episode, we discussed the National Association of Media Literacy Educators definition, the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. These 5 skills are your toolbox for encountering media in the wild. If you're watching this video, you may take the first skill, access, for granted. To play this YouTube video, you need a device that can connect to the internet, a smartphone, computer, or tablet. Plus, that device needs software for video and audio playback. Then, of course, you need an internet connection, one fast enough to stream this video. To some of us, being constantly connected to the internet is an everyday thing. But these things cost money. And in the US, many people can't access the internet. At least 5 million kids don't have internet access at home, and for many poor families, places like the local library or a McDonald's with free Wi-Fi are the only places they can get online. Think about how often you use the internet and for what. You have probably used it to complete homework or apply for a job or file taxes. All of these things seem essential and easy to do if you have the means. Practice makes perfect, right? A kid who grows up without regular internet access will have lower digital skill levels than their peers who access it easily. And as I'm sure you know, digital skills are crucial to functioning in our high-tech world. That means many people who don't have this access are behind before they even start school. In July 2016, the United Nations declared internet access a basic human right. They said, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. The internet may seem like it makes everything way more accessible. You can just Google what you need rather than lug around a set of encyclopedias, but access remains unevenly distributed. The other side of the coin is our second skill, analyze. If and when you do have access, you're flooded with way too much information and way too many sources of entertainment. Locating the highest quality content, whether you're looking for a reliable source of news or a TV show you like, or a series of charming and educational YouTube videos, this requires you to analyze what you're looking at. The foundation of media analysis is acknowledging that all media is constructed with a purpose and a particular point of view. Media literacy scholar Renee Hobbs recommends answering 5 questions when you make a media choice. Number 1, who created this message and what is the purpose? Is it a movie made by Disney for entertainment? Is it an ad made by Apple to sell phones and computers? Number 2, what techniques does it use to attract and hold attention? Does the message include persuasive elements to convince you its story is true? Is it flashy and loud like a pop-up ad or have a cliffhangery headline to suck you in? Number 3, what lifestyles, values, and points of view does it depict? Is it representing a single point of view like an autobiography? Is it an Instagram feed that's all about that hashtag beach life or a blog that's all about working hard and playing hard? Number 4, how might different people interpret this message? Would your parents or grandparents or best friend feel the same way about this? How would they react? Number 5, what is omitted or left out? Is this article about politics talking about every party or just one? Did that breakup song mention the good times too? Why or why not? Once you've established answers to these questions, it's time to evaluate the quality and credibility of the media you're consuming. Media literacy scholar Julie Coiro says there are 4 key things to look out for: relevance, accuracy, bias, and reliability. The first is relevance. Does the info or media serve its purpose, and to what degree? If you Googled recipes for chow mein and a recipe for peach muffins comes up instead, that content is not relevant. This one can be a pretty low bar to clear. As we know, our mind loves to accept the easiest to understand info as the right info because it's convenient, which is why we move on to accuracy. Evaluating something for accuracy can be difficult when you're just learning about it yourself. The first step is to check how factual it is. Are its claims backed up by empirical evidence, or is it just someone's opinion? You should be able to double check those facts with other sources. Of course, just because multiple outlets tell the same story doesn't mean it's true. Like how every time there's a hurricane, someone photoshops a shark into into the waters and local news stations run the story. In cases like these, take that info and double check with their source. Next, you look for bias or someone's perspective. Be sure to distinguish whether the author of the media you're evaluating is slanting the facts towards a particular point of view, and ask how that reflects on the publisher. Biased media can obscure reality by presenting only the evidence that supports one opinion. To ward this off, it's always great to seek out diverse perspectives on a topic and look for evidence to support any stance that you take. Finally, determining reliability can help you find sources of information that you trust. Reliability is how trustworthy a publisher or author is based on the entirety of their work. Yes, it's complicated. As you know, some respected publishers who are reliable sources publish native ads that look like news. Some even promote those sketchy clickbait tabloid ads about celebrities dying or losing weight. By consistently evaluating for relevance, accuracy, and bias, you can determine whether a publisher's work is reliable on the whole. Let's take this 4-part evaluation for a spin in the thought bubble. Consider this article from the Washington Post from November 2017. The headline reads, "FCC net neutrality process corrupted by fake comments and vanishing consumer complaints," officials say. It's about a new rule the Federal Communications Commission was set to vote on the next month. The FCC put out a call for citizens to comment on the decision to roll back net neutrality protections. Some said the comment process wasn't fair and that bad actors manipulated it to get their way. So, is this relevant? Well, if you came across this article because you were searching for Titanic fanfic, you'd say no. But if you came across it on social media and were interested in this net neutrality battle, you'd certainly find this information relevant. Check. Is it accurate? The Washington Post reporter explains the net neutrality comments process and the allegations against it. They cite credible sources along the way, like the New York Attorney General, an FCC spokesperson, and a data scientist. They also link to other stories that back up their claims throughout. It looks pretty accurate. Check. Is it biased? This article doesn't just quote the FCC in this story about the FCC. They also gave space to the New York Attorney General and the leader of an advocacy group that are against the FCC's net neutrality decision. They present both sides of this fight and include a third party, the data scientist, to offer a neutral opinion. That's a good way to fight off bias. Check. Is it reliable? The Washington Post is well known for a history of quality journalism and has won dozens of Pulitzer Prizes, the Oscars for journalism. The article was written by Brian Fung, their technology writer who has written about internet access quite a bit before. He's also written for the National Journal and The Atlantic, 2 other reliable publications. This checks out for reliability. See, it only takes a minute to go through this 4-step check with a bit of news. You can use this whenever you come across media you find questionable. It's an important skill to have. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Maybe the most fun media literacy skill is to create media yourself. Taking your knowledge of how media are produced and producing some of your own is actually a great way to develop skills in analyzing and evaluating media too. It's like media literacy inception. But you don't have to be some music producer or artist to create media. Posting to social networks is creating media. Writing a blog is creating media. Making a funny GIF from your favorite TV show is creating media. Finally, the most important part of media literacy is being able to act on all of the skills you've acquired. Acting on media literacy could mean looking up local candidates for government and using that info when you vote. It could mean going vegan after reading about animal farms. It could even mean deleting Twitter from your phone after realizing you're addicted to social media. You may be wondering, do everyday people really access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act on all the media they consume each day? Of course not. It's impossible to apply each of these principles to everything we absorb all the time. But little by little, as you start to apply them to different media, it will become a habit, like building a muscle. You'll find yourself doing it reflexively as you scroll through your phone or listen to the radio. As a key tenet of media literacy, you should be able to accomplish this across all of your devices and types of media. Not just the news and advertisements, but movies and music and books too. You might use multiple devices in the span of one day, and in that one day see videos, photos, news articles, ads, short stories, quizzes, sponsored content, you name it. As long as you know how to access what you want, what to trust, and who you can rely on for it, you'll thrive within the fast-paced media environment. But we're not done yet. Next time on Crash Course Media Literacy, we're going to talk about how media literacy itself is going to change in the future. How will we respond to virtual and augmented reality media? How does artificial intelligence factor into our news diet? Should we even let corporations sell us smart home devices that listen to us all the time? There's a lot to cover, and I can't wait to dive in. For Crash Course, I'm Jay Smooth. See you next time.
Information literacy. What is information literacy and what does it mean to be information literate? Defines information literacy as a set of abilities empowering individuals to recognize when information is needed and to be able to locate it, evaluate it, and use it effectively. While information literacy is often talked about on college campuses in terms of doing library research for papers and annotated bibliographies and other sorts of classroom assignments, we use and need information in every aspect of our lives. Think about all of the informal research we do each day. We look up movie and book reviews, how-to videos on YouTube, product reviews, and strategies for parenting. We Google how to fill out some field on our tax forms, we look up job ads and tips on job interviews, how to spell or define some unfamiliar word or acronym. We all have information needs, and being able to effectively identify and meet those needs is at the core information literacy. Being able to differentiate quality information from questionable information is also critical. Information literacy in 6 ways. 1. Authority is constructed and contextual. When you use information, or choose one source of information over another, you presume a certain amount of expertise on the part of the information's author on the topic they are writing about. What gives the author that authority? What makes some information more authoritative than other information? What makes a piece of information authoritative can vary from discipline to discipline and be based on context. So, for example, an author may be an authority on a given topic because of extensive experience, or because of extensive education. Even without deep experience or education, an author may bring authority to their writing based on their having witnessed or participated in some major event. In both cases, their authority is contextual. A physics professor may have authority when writing within their field, but be considered far less authoritative when writing in an unrelated field. 2. Information creation as a process. Information appears in a variety of forms. Depending on whether it is in the form of a newspaper article, a scholarly book, or a formatted report, the creation of information requires a process. Understanding how and why authors publish in a particular format, what those formats require in terms of fact-checking, or sourcing, or expertise, what editorial oversight exists, the role of publishers, all these considerations may play into your thinking about the relevance of a particular information source to your research question. 3. Information has value, and this fact has very real implications to researchers and information consumers in both how information is produced and how it is disseminated. It has economic value as a commodity, for example, as evidenced by intellectual property rights and other legal considerations, and by the considerable role of the publishing industry. Information also has educational and social value, with its ability to inform, educate, and persuade. 4. Research as inquiry. One can think of research as an inquiry. A researcher asks a question, or identifies some gap in our current understanding of a topic, and in the process of filling that gap, new questions and new avenues for further research emerge. 5. Scholarship as conversation. Scholarship on a given topic will grow and evolve over time. New theories, new interpretations, new experiments, new facts are always being discovered and debated. As the references or citations of any scholarly article demonstrate, every researcher is building on the work of many other researchers. Conscientious scholars will always go to great effort to indicate what previous work has informed their own work. 6. Searching as strategic exploration. Over time, as you gain experience and your research needs grow more complex, you will likely develop sophisticated strategies for locating relevant information. Searching for information is rarely as simple as just plugging a keyword into a search engine or library database and getting all the books and articles you need. You'll likely try different ways of searching for information, and in different places. An information-literate individual should be able to recognize the need for information time. Formulate questions based on information needs. Identify potential sources of information. Develop successful and effective search strategies. Access various sources of information independently and efficiently. Evaluate information obtained meaningfully. Organize information effectively. Integrate new information into an existing body of knowledge. Use information critically.
There was a time when books used to be the primary source of information. But today, we find ourselves bombarded with an overwhelming amount of it, from a multitude of sources. Information is as abundant as the world is vast. It comes in a variety of forms and can be accessed in different ways. When it comes to the information we have available to us, the sky really is the limit. This can result in many challenges when it comes to accessing and using information. First, it can be very easy to waste time trying to find the information we need, especially if we don't know where to look. It can also be difficult to compare the reliability of one source with that of another, especially if we don't understand the context of the information or know how to research the credibility of authors. That's why we need to possess skills that will allow us to determine the what, when, and how for using information effectively. What we need is information literacy. So what exactly is information literacy? Information literacy is a set of skills that helps people navigate through information overload, something we experience virtually every day. There are 6 main concepts that encompass information literacy. They may sound confusing at first, but bear with me. Number 1, authority is constructed and contextual. Number 2, information creation as a process. Number 3, information has value. Number 4, research as inquiry. Number 5, scholarship as conversation. And number 6, searching as strategic exploration. Okay, so I know that probably didn't make a lot of sense to you. So what does all of this mean in plain English? Let's break it down. So back to the first concept of information literacy. Authority is constructed and contextual. This means that it's important to learn how to identify the reliability of an information source, which often depends on the context of the information. It also means respecting intellectual property. Give credit to the source when you share bits of information, a photo, video, or anything else you didn't create yourself, and be sure it's okay to use before sharing. The second concept of information literacy is information creation as a process. Understand that information undergoes a process of research, creation, revision, and often peer review before it is distributed. This results in information that exists in various forms and methods of delivery. Understanding this will help you select a source that fits your information need. The third concept is information has value. Not only can information be sold, but it also serves as a means of education. Information can influence people, and it can help individuals understand and navigate the world. The creation and sharing of information can also be influenced by current events in the economy. Just take a look at how information is created and shared during an election. The fourth concept of information literacy highlights research as inquiry. Research is an inquisitive process that often consists of trial and error when attempting to find reliable and relevant sources of information. It is essential to learn how to examine information to determine if it fits your need. Asking questions is an important part of this process. Another important skill related to this concept is the ability to organize and synthesize information. For example, how well can you incorporate sources of information into a research paper? Concept number 5 is scholarship as conversation. Scholarship, or academic study, is really a conversation that exists among people within a certain field. When a new book or journal article is published, it contributes new insight to an ongoing conversation regarding a certain topic. Because of this, it is important to recognize that scholars will offer different perspectives and ideas. It is also important to give credit when quoting from other scholars' work. The sixth and final concept of information literacy, searching as strategic exploration. Effective research involves developing a strategy and refining it as you go. Research doesn't happen in a straight line. Sometimes you'll need to make course corrections along the way. This final concept involves knowing how to identify and use the best research tools, including how to form the best keywords for your search. So how do the skills surrounding these concepts apply in the real world, beyond the classroom? Here are a few examples. Once you develop these skills, you will know how to find reliable and relevant information online. You will also be better equipped to safeguard your personal and financial information. You will understand that information shared on social media is often biased or even false, so some research may be involved before trusting a source. You will also know how to be informed when making big life decisions, like buying your first home. You will be able to recognize that intellectual property comes in many forms, such as a photo, video, or song, and to share these items requires the permission of the owner, as well as citation of your source. And finally, you will be better able to have informed conversations with others and respect different viewpoints.
Searching for information sometimes seems like opening the floodgates. It can be an overwhelming experience, and you may feel overloaded with the vast amount of information that exists. So how do you find what's relevant to you? To sift through so much data, you'll need to develop your information literacy skills. By the end of this video, you'll learn what information literacy is and why it's important, how you use information literacy in your daily life, and how to use information literacy skills as you go through college. According to the American Library Association, an information literate person must be able to recognize when information is needed and have the ability to locate, evaluate, and effectively use that information. But we also can visualize it in simpler terms. Information literacy is a way of defining and thinking about the research process. It's a life skill needed for college and beyond, in your professional and personal life. And above all, it's a process. It takes time to develop and hone these skills, but with practice, you'll be well on your way. While there are many ways to think about information literacy, it still can be a tricky concept to grasp without tying it into some aspect of your own life. You've probably used information literacy skills many times without even realizing it. Think about an instance when you needed to figure something out. Perhaps it was as simple as trying to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich, or more serious, like considering what type of job to apply for. In both cases, you follow certain steps to achieve the goal. Let's break down what each situation looks like. If you want to know how to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich, you gather information from a variety of places. You may start by reading recipes online, as well as reading others' reviews of recipes. You might ask your friends or family for cooking tips, or possibly peruse cookbooks. Seeking information in each of these places gives you a foundation for starting your recipe. You may find that this effort yielded enough information, or you may have to gather more details and tweak your recipe until it's perfect. Say instead you're trying to find a part-time job while you're in school. Using information literacy skills in this case means you start by establishing which companies are hiring and reading job descriptions. From here, you narrow jobs down based on your qualifications. Then, you research a company so you can tie that knowledge into your cover letter. These steps help to build a strong foundation for an eventual interview before you even apply for the job. These examples required knowing what information was needed, accessing and evaluating that information, and effectively using it to reach a conclusion. As we've mentioned, developing information literacy skills is a process, but it's one that you can master with practice. Here are 5 simple steps you can follow to enhance your information literacy skills. First, know your information need. Consider an assignment's requirements when choosing and focusing your topic. Do you need general or more in-depth information? Did your professor say you only may use peer-reviewed scholarly articles, or are articles from trade journals and newspapers acceptable? Second, access the needed information. Know when to use the library catalog, article and reference databases, or the internet to find and retrieve print and electronic books and articles, web pages, and other documents. Talk to your librarian or professor to discover what resources are available. Third, examine information sources critically. Is the information you found relevant to what you need? Evaluate it for its accuracy, currency, reliability, and point of view or bias. Fourth, use information effectively to accomplish a specific purpose. Select the information you'll use in your final assignment. Make sure you organize your ideas and analyze whether you've answered your research question. And finally, use information ethically. Always give credit to the sources you use in your assignment. Even if you're paraphrasing or summarizing an idea, you must cite it in your work. Doing so will help you prevent committing plagiarism. It may seem like a challenge to develop your information literacy skills, but with a little practice, you'll be on your way to success. Librarians are especially good at finding useful sources, but a recent Project Information Literacy study found that 80% of college students never bother to ask for their help. Always remember that librarians and professors are here to help if you get stuck along the way. You now should be familiar with what information literacy is and why it's important, how you use information literacy in your daily life, and how to use information literacy skills as you go through college.
Technology digital literacy. Technology literacy is the ability of an individual, working independently and with others, to responsibly, appropriately and effectively use technology tools to access, manage, integrate, evaluate, create and communicate information. Technological literacy is related to digital literacy in that when an individual is proficient in using computers and other digital devices to access the internet, digital literacy gives them the ability to use the internet to discover, review, evaluate, create, and use information via various digital platforms, such as web browsers, databases, online journals, magazines, newspapers, blogs, and social media sites.
So, you've heard that at uni, you need to have skills in something called digital literacy. And you thought, what? If that's you, don't worry. The library can help you understand. So you're already searching and navigating every day through all types of information. You make choices based on what you find out. And you're also sharing it socially using a variety of tools. Let's pretend you want to book a trip overseas. A holiday. What do you need to know? Well, you might research things like accommodation, weather, food and culture, coffee, the best of course, and you'll make travel plans based on what you find out. You might even create an itinerary online and share it with your family. Now, you just need to make sure you know how to use these digital literacy skills in a similar way to be successful at uni. And we all want that. Digital literacy is one of 8 Deakin graduate learning outcomes, a core set of skills you'll get as a Deakin student. Digital literacy is all about using technologies confidently as you live, learn, and work in a challenging digital world. But it's more than that. Being a digitally literate student means having capabilities in 5 connected areas. You need to be able to search, navigate, and locate information in digital environments. After finding your information, it's time to evaluate, analyse, and apply your critical thinking skills to check, is this relevant to my research needs? A digitally literate student would then organise, manage, and curate the information they've found. This just means sorting and storing it in a way that makes it easier to use. Another important digital literacy skill is being able to create, construct, and generate digital artifacts and your digital identity. Things like developing an online presentation, making a video about your research area, or writing and editing an assignment. Part of being a student in a digital world also requires the ability to communicate, connect, and collaborate with others, to share information or to be involved in group projects. You need to do all of this using a variety of technologies. And not just technology of today, but with new things too, so that you are always adapting and changing. Being flexible and capable in digital literacy is a great thing. It's key to your success both at uni and in your future career, and Deakin can help you get there.
Digital literacy is a term you may have heard more and more about over the past few years, but what does it mean and why is it important? We increasingly communicate and access information through a variety of digital environments. Our workplaces, social lives, and educational settings all require some form of competence in digital literacy. Digital literacy isn't just about knowing how to use technology, it's about navigating and communicating through different digital environments. You need a certain level of digital literacy to turn a computer on, for example, but require different skills to locate and complete an online job application. The extent in which you participate in different aspects of the digital world is often shaped by your personal need for the information and the opportunities that it provides. Some people rely on social media sites to keep up to date with their friends and arrange their social calendars, whereas others don't engage with it at all. However, there are some areas where having the appropriate skills are extremely important to succeed in the modern world. 90% of new graduate jobs require high-level information and communication technology or ICT skills. The jobs market is very competitive and changeable, and having the right digital literacy skills is essential to employability. This directly impacts the world of education. Students need to have digital literacy skills alongside their qualifications to help them become employable when they graduate. There are also so many new ways to learn. As well as searching through physical texts, you can now access information and research instantly via the web. Video, audio and images can be used for teaching and for student assignments. Assessed work is increasingly submitted electronically and feedback given online. Communicating and collaborating on content can be facilitated through a variety of online platforms. With all these new opportunities come new requirements and responsibilities for everybody. We need to understand how to evaluate and look at the authenticity and validity of the wealth of information available to us. There are aspects of being safe online, understanding our online identity, and being aware of the etiquette of online communication. Digital literacy skills will get more necessary as technology develops, particularly as cultures, languages, and different modes of communication overlap and intersect. We all need to be prepared to understand and embrace this new digital landscape and be confident and competent in guiding our future generations through it.
What is digital literacy? Digital literacies are the capabilities for living, learning, working, participating, and thriving in a digital society. It's important for ensuring we offer the best care for individuals through the latest and best technologies available. But what constitutes digital literacy? To keep things simple, we've divided digital literacy into 6 domains. Each one has its own capabilities and behaviours to help improve our healthcare workplace. First, there's communication, collaboration, and participation. This means using a wide range of digital technologies to communicate and work together in an ethical, positive, and appropriate manner. Next comes teaching, learning, and self-development. The ability to demonstrate and champion a positive attitude in seeking out appropriate and innovative digital technologies to enhance learning, education, and training for yourself, colleagues, and the individuals we care for. Technical proficiency is the confidence to resolve technological problems by yourself and to use a variety of digital devices in a personal and professional context. Information, data, and media literacy is the ability to find, manage, and store digital information and to use a variety of different media for the purposes of communication and teaching. And then there's digital creation, innovation, and scholarship. This might include taking photos or videos, or creating presentations, new ways of doing things digitally, or using digital tools to help with research. Underpinning all the domains, we have digital identity, well-being, and safety. This means behaving in a safe and professional manner online, being able to recognize events that might compromise anyone's safety or the safety and security of data and information, and understanding that each person builds up a digital persona. Ultimately, it's not about mastering specific new technologies, but acquiring a positive attitude towards any new technology or innovation that might improve an individual's quality of care, no matter what position in healthcare you hold.
Technology is inescapable, but has it improved learning? Is it possible that the way we're using technology is making us worse readers? Are we all becoming a bunch of non-critical readers with 6-second attention spans? Stick around and let's think about it. Hi, welcome to Snap Language. Mark Franco here. Kevin left this comment to a recent video. I would say I was once an avid reader before my smartphone came along and pretty much took all of the time I used to devote to long-form text. Do sports blurbs and Facebook count as reading? I consider them fast food for the brain. Well, I guess just like food, technology can be good or bad for you. A lot of research shows that, depending on how it's used, technology can actually enhance learning. Technology gives us quick access to a large volume of information that was unimaginable not long ago. But new technologies also create new concerns, perhaps because we don't understand its impact yet. Some studies suggest that technology can support teaching and learning. Other studies suggest that young Americans are turning to the internet instead of using their textbooks. That can be alarming to some because, let's be honest, there's a lot of junk on the internet. But then perhaps it's about educating learners on how to be informed users of technology so they know how to evaluate the information. Limiting learners to a single source is like giving them only pea soup when they have a whole buffet right in front of them. I like pea soup though. It's no surprise that a lot of textbooks have companion websites and apps. Publishers know learners want to supplement their learning that way, so publishers make good use of the available technology. Way back in 2002, Stephanie Harvey realized that her classroom had mostly fiction books around for her students. But adults read a variety of both fiction and nonfiction, so she recommended using online resources to give students a variety of materials. That can actually motivate students to use the internet to read more and learn on their own. Most instructors know that they can and should integrate technology into their classrooms. But why would you include social media, blogs, YouTube, and other resources that some may consider time wasters? It's important to use what's relevant to learners as a springboard for learning. Some say social media is the gateway drug to consumer products. Can't social media also be used as a gateway drug to reading and learning? Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. But we don't read only for academic purposes. I often read because I have a reason to. Other times I find something so fascinating that I want to know more, so I read about it. The problem is the internet has both good information and misinformation. Who posted the information? What sources did they use? Are they experts in the field? If we can't tell, we must take the information with a grain of salt. But that's the key point. If we're really interested in something, we make sure it's from a reputable source. We compare different sources. We question the information. So social media, a short article on the internet, even a YouTube video can be the starting point of your interest. I don't see anything wrong with that. Our fellow viewer called this fast food for the brain. It can also be an appetizer for the brain. Another concern, especially regarding social media, is that it may give you a false sense of understanding a topic. You read a short blurb about something and you think, I know this, I read about it, on a tweet. Don't do this. It's just silly. Ultimately, it's up to us to be critical readers and choose to find more and better information about a topic. Back to our original questions, does reading short messages in social media help or get in the way of developing our reading skills? Is technology making us worse readers? I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. We all have different experiences with a language, most of which we create ourselves. Maybe it is true that easy access to information also made it easier for us to read from a single source and with little depth of thought. But was it any different in the past? Before the digital age, was everybody a critical reader? I'm not so sure about that. Being educated consumers of information has been and should always be integral to literacy, regardless where the information comes from. Do you seek out more information about things that interest you? Are we becoming worse readers? Are we becoming worse thinkers or worse learners? I'd like to know what you think, so leave a comment below. You can give us your opinion or read more about it and let us know. Please like this video and subscribe. Let's help this community grow so more people can get smarter through language. And until the next time, Thanks for stopping by and watching this video.
To survive, one must adapt. Such is the law of the jungle. Each and every species presently existing is a result of evolution, one form of adaptation. As we transitioned from wood to concrete jungles, life remained abuzz, but danger grew more so. As the progeny of the information age, we come face to face not with beasts, but digital displays that have quietly taken over our lives. With the evolution of our needs must come the adaptation of our skills to the new tasks. Information has become our weapon of choice, yet like with any weapon, it can be turned against the user. Much like weapons require mastery, information requires literacy, both through the media and the technology through which the information is communicated. Literacy. It refers to the essential competencies or the abilities to read, write, and understand materials with varying context.
Media refers to the communication tools, especially for mass communication. It is classified in three forms: print media, broadcast media, and new media. Media literacy is the ability to access, analyze, and create media as a competency necessary for traditional media and new technologies to respond to the changing natures of information. To be a media literate person, you must be able to access, to know where to find the form of media needed; analyze, to think reflectively and more critically and to analyze the validity of the text and reliability of the source; response, to experience and explore the pleasures of media text; create, to use media tools to produce your own media text; information. There are the processed data or knowledge derived from studies, experiences, instructions, signals, or symbols. Information literacy is the ability to recognize information when needed and use it efficiently. Hence, you must be able to locate, evaluate, and effectively communicate information in its various formats. There are three marks of an information literate person. Mark number 1. One must view information and as part of a larger social vision. Mark number 2. One must be a motivated lifelong learner. Mark number 3. One must know how to find and use information in its various contexts. Technology is the application of scientific knowledge for practical purposes such as the industry and engineering. Technology literacy It is the responsible and effective means of using technological tools in order to meet one's goal in acquiring and using the right information. Possesses a range of digital skills, skills in computer networks, knowledge of basic principles of computing devices, ability to engage in online communities.
Now that we have defined the different terms involved in media information and technology literacy, let us compare and contrast the three literacy. Media literacy. It is the ability to access, analyze, and create media and media messages. It is about the consumption of information using communication tools for human interaction. Its main focus is institutional, media, and audience effect of media messages. Technology literacy. It is the ability to efficiently and ethically use technological tools as participation in the digital environment, and its focus is using the new media to communicate information. Information literacy. It is the ability to recognize information when needed and use it efficiently. It is about utilizing the efficiency of information, and its main focus is the textual analysis itself.
Media literacy, technology literacy. Technology serves to be the medium through which media is displayed, thus requiring visual literacy. Provides solutions to certain problems plaguing our communities. Empowers people to build and foster knowledge for cultural competence, emerging to be the next platform for vital information and archive storage. Information literacy, technology literacy. Cooperate together to contribute to promotion of new literacy knowledge societies. Both functions and are utilized for the interpretation of media. Both can further improve a person's ability to understand, create, and utilize info appropriately. Media literacy, information literacy. Spreading information around the people with different types of media. Keeps individuals up to date with relevant and timely information, allowing for proper organization, enabling them to interpret and make informed judgments. Equips individuals with a great discernment for what is considered to be valid information, through logical and factual scanning. Media, information, and technology literacy. After the right consumption of information through effective and ethical media use and technological means for the benefits of consumers. Set of competencies to discern, assess, generate, and communicate information available to the public. Tools that serve to be the great equalizer in our modern interwoven world. Stores, retrieves, and manipulate data. Now that we have discussed the principles encountered when dealing with information, we must remember to apply their proper uses to become truly competent with our modern technology. Having knowledge of these essential skills not only allow us to achieve more effective and efficient transmission while maintaining the integrity of our information, but also allow us to determine the best method to approach each digital problem. These are all essential skills and abilities that will prove to be indispensable in our daily lives as netizens and citizens of an emerging competitive globe. Because media, information, and technology literacy will all lead to global literacy.
This is the summary of our lesson for today. The word media comes from the Latin medius, which means middle. Media is the plural form of medium, though in actual usage it is acceptably understood as a singular subject as well. Thus, we could say, media are responsible for the information that they disseminate. And we could also say, media is trying to influence us all the time. The term mass media achieved currency in the late 19th and early 20th centuries with reference to the proliferation of inexpensive newspapers and magazines. As such, we now tend to think of television, radio, newspaper, and the like. We hear the word media, even if the term is not limited to mass communication and mass media. George Gerbner, for example, employing cultivation analysis in his research, found out that people with prolonged exposure to television tend to view the world as dangerous and tend to mistrust other people. Gerbner called this outlook the mean world syndrome. Because media is so powerful, many people want to use it. Some want to use it to affirm life, while others to negate it. Media is technological. But at least in this chapter, we have to appreciate the meaning of technology beyond the term's automatic associations. Perhaps we think of machines or microchips when we hear the word technology. The Greek technologia, from which technology is derived, means the systematic, logia, application of art or knowledge, techon. The term refers not only to the engineered cell phone that you use to reach someone from a distance but also to the body and voice of a storyteller, speaking to others about distant places. People, in this sense, are media. You are a medium. When people continue to pass on or perpetuate certain knowledge or arts, which they have received from others and acquired by learning, they become part of a technology, they become technological. Media literacy as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate and create messages across a variety of contexts. This four-component model has the advantage of applying equally well to print, broadcasting and the Internet. This is familiar territory for print and broadcasting, subject of many policy initiatives and educational curricula. Information literacy is a set of abilities empowering individuals to recognize when information is needed and to be able to locate it, evaluate it, and use it effectively. While information literacy is often talked about on college campuses in terms of doing library research for papers and annotated bibliographies and other sorts of classroom assignments, we use and need information in every aspect of our lives. Information literacy in 6 ways. 1. Authority is constructed and contextual. 2. Information creation as a process. 3. Information has value. 4. Research as inquiry. 5. Scholarship as conversation. 6. Searching as strategic exploration. An information literate individual should be able to recognize the need for information time, formulate questions based on information needs, identify potential sources of information, develop successful and effective search strategies, access various sources of information independently and efficiently, evaluate information obtained meaningfully, organize information effectively, integrate new information into an existing body of knowledge, use information critically. Technology literacy is the ability of an individual, working independently and with others, to responsibly, appropriately and effectively use technology tools to access, manage, integrate, evaluate, create and communicate information. Technological literacy is related to digital literacy in that when an individual is proficient in using computers and other digital devices to access the Internet, digital literacy gives them the ability to use the Internet to discover, review, evaluate, create, and use information via various digital platforms, such as web browsers, databases, online journals, magazines, newspapers, blogs, and social media sites. Activity 1. Answer the following questions. 1. Do the particular historical contexts 1835 and 1947 have to do with the believability of the hoaxes? What is believable and unbelievable today? 2. What aspects of media, in this case, the newspaper and radio, allowed the hoaxes to be taken as fact? 3. Considering the metaphors for media in our discussion, in what ways do you think can media be considered as powerful? In what ways can be considered as dangerous? 4. Famous claims that the inventor cannot predict the value and effect of the technology he invents. Can you think of inventions that have had unintended results or even results contrary to the original purpose of the invention? 5. What are the similarities of media, information and technology literacy? That would be all for our session today. Hanggang sa muli nating pagkikita. God bless you all.